And how long you been back in Houston?
15 days.
Oh wow! So you just got. Oh
20
wow!
days.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
I got here on the
What?
15th of
Wow!
January.
What made you decide to move back?
Family is one.
Mm.
Um, I this is where I started, and like I was saying, most of the people that I know and love are here, especially in America. I got some family here. I have an aunt that I was really close to, and she got sick, and then we kind of,
Sorry.
the space gave us some distance, and she passed last year. Saul Solis passed. Saul was a good friend of mine. Um, and then like all my friends here are kind of the same in the sense of like we don't see each other or talk for 5 days or 5 years, and the only thing we have to do is catch up on that time that we miss with each other, but like nothing's any different, you know and I'm like, I want to be closer to those people. I made some good friends in other places too, but like between losing my aunt and Saul passing and having good friends here, this is like my home in America, you know what I mean? So like this is one of those places I want to be. On top of that, like I wanna coach. I feel more at home here. You know what I mean? When it comes to coaching, I trained at a lot of good places. And like the last place I was training at was Lloyd Irving's in Maryland. And man, there's some great guys in there. Good training. And I always was like, whenever I would show a technique, I'm like, but these guys are so good. Like, I don't know what I can offer you guys, but like every time I show a technique, they're like, man, they're eating it up. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like Houston is where I needed to be in that sense for martial arts and for coaching and whatnot. Um, because like I said, those guys in Maryland, they eat up my stuff, and they're already amazing. Like Lloyd's jujitsu, like first of all, his jujitsu guys, like phenomenal. It blew my mind going into that room and rolling with some of those guys, and I'm just like, bro, like I don't know how this place is not. And it's one of those things. He doesn't need or want a much bigger place. He doesn't want like an American top team or AK or whatever. But I'm just like, how does everybody not come here? But then all these guys just come in from out of town to come and train with him, and he's got a lot of black belts around the world, and and then it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm giving. I know I love to train fighters. I love to help the guys who compete. Uh, More so, I've been more so like that, especially since I retired,
Mm.
than being interested in training hobbyists. You
Mm.
know, and so as I'm teaching these guys, and I'm helping out with these guys, and just working out with them also, and they're picking up my stuff, and they're liking it and they're loving it, and I'm like, but this is Lloyd's place. This is Master Lloyd's place. I can help. I can help a lot. But it's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I need to go back and do my own thing, get back in my own place. Um, so yeah, like teaching is one of those things that I kind of forgot that I had a real love for, until doing it more. And it wasn't like I stopped doing it, but I just been focused on like my friends and guys who are at some of the highest levels, Mickey Gall, Dustin Poirier, Joe Schilling. Um, and then it's like, but you guys are so good. You just need like a sprinkling of me. You know what I mean? Um, but coming back here, it's like starting with the young guys again. You know, that's a whole lot of fun for me because it kind of blows my mind. Sometimes I watch these young guys go, and it's like, oh man, he's eager, he's excited. Oh, that's good, that's good. But then we start breaking down technique, and it's like some of the stuff they aren't there yet. It's over their head. They just don't understand the concepts yet, and it's like, yeah, that's a part of what teaching is
Mm.
about. When you're talking about technique and concepts, it's like getting these guys to understand how these pieces fit in the big picture. And I really like seeing guys develop too. So being back here is, for me, it's like it's kind of a blessing, man.
That's really interesting. So in your, I know it's early, but like in your ideal vision, would you do you want to develop a crop of young guys from scratch that will go on to be really like just top fighters? You want to like develop a whole squad?
I'm definitely going to do that. That's going to happen, you know. There's it's funny because coming back here, like I said, I have so many friends here. Like Travis Took is one of my really good friends. You know, he's a guy who belted me with my black belt, and I've trained with Travis. Shoot, since when did I fight Cotto Uno? I trained with Travis since that fight. You
Oh
know, it was
wow.
like in 2002 or something like that. Um, so wow, 20 years. Um, and so yeah, we've trained together for that long. I have a student, Chase Corley, Michael Chase Corley. He is a Muay Thai kickboxer. He's like when he came into my gym at 15 years old, you
Wow.
know, 15, 16 years old. He was a high school student, and he loved the striking part of it. And he just kept going. Like he came with me to a lot of my fights actually. He came to Pride a couple times
Oh
or
wow.
once. Um, and he just stuck with it, but he focused on his striking and his Muay Thai. He went over to Thailand, trained there, participated in the Thai version of the Contenders, and came back here and became the president of US Muay Thai. And he built this gym, and like he's got all these young Muay Thai fighters that are really good. Rebecca Irwin is one of his students, and she became a world champion at 17. You know, and
Wow.
he's like, man, I would love for you to if you come help my guys, you know. So this is kind of how this went. Sometime last year, like after losing my aunt, but prior to Saul's passing, um, I came down and I did a seminar at his place. I was just standing there and I was looking at the number of students in the room, and I was real proud. It was like a proud uncle moment, you know, because I mean I've known you since you were a kid, and you kept doing this, and you're at this point in your life, you know. And then he was like, man, I would really love if you help me with these guys for their MMA. Like a lot of these guys want to transition and do some mixed martial arts. And he, like I said, I think he fought two mixed martial arts fights, but only because it was hard to get kickboxing fights and Muay Thai fights, you know? Um, and it's kind of one of those things where you look in the fridge and but you're hungry and you look in the fridge, but you don't really have anything, but you start putting things together. It's almost like that in the sense of like I'm in Maryland and I like it, but I know this is not where I'm going to retire. I'm going to spend the rest of my life. Um, my wife is she's amenable to leaving. You know, she's born and raised in DC, but she's amenable to leaving. Um, and I'm like, well, do I want to go back to LA? Do I want to go to Atlanta? Do I want to go to Houston? You know, my mom's in Georgia, and just going back to visit these places, these kind of pieces just fell together. And it was like, Houston, man, that's home. That's that's where I want to be. I think that's where I want to be. If I'm going to be in America, before I go back to the Bahamas, I got to be in Houston. And
That's
so it just kind of
beautiful.
worked out.
I want to return a lot to the teaching and to the gym where you're coaching at. You mentioned this. You said for America this is home. Obviously, you were a kid, not like you were a teenager when you moved from the Bahamas to the U.S. So I don't know how much at the time you were privy to the decision making, but to the best of your understanding, why did you all move at that time to the U.S.?
So my biological parents, got divorced when I was really young. But like they stayed, you know, close friends. And I always spent a lot of time with my dad. Um, I know they still loved each other. I remember my mom, of course, she dated, my dad dated, and my mom was engaged once, but like she didn't go through with it. And I came to find out later, it's one of those things where she was like, I just couldn't get married again with your father being alive and these things. And also I wanted to, like, in the really, like, a bunch of people from the Caribbean come here. You were born in Mexico, right?
Right. Yep.
Same reasons. Like, we all come here for the same reasons. We see the ads, we see the movies, we see the things that say this is the land of opportunity, and where we are, those things are a little bit like a lot more rare. So came I honestly, initially, what I came here to do, or what I thought I was coming here to do, was play basketball.
Oh,
Like, I
wow.
played basketball. I was a hardcore basketball player as a kid. I thought I was going to be much taller than I am. My dad was like 6'2", 6'3", and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be like my dad, blah blah blah. Which is crazy, because this is a side note. I have an uncle who my mom's father left the Bahamas when she was young. He came to America, and he had kids here, and I meet them, and they're all like over 6 feet. My mom's like 5'2", but my grandmother's real small too. I have two cousins, like literally my mother's sister's kids just went to the NBA, right?
Wow.
But I'm 5'9". so um so yeah, I came here with the intention of playing basketball. And yeah, you can at 5'9" make it to the NBA, but that's an anomaly, you know.
Right.
So as I've always been in love with martial arts, and when my dad passed, my mom was more amenable to moving or trying to put me in a different position, you know. Um, and my aunt lived here in Houston. She came to visit. She was a lot. I think she allowed herself more freedom now too, you know. So um, she started dating my stepdad. They met on a trip here, visit here. She started dating my stepdad, who's my dad to this day. Like I love my biological father. He is my father. He's my dad, and I'll celebrate him. But I will also call my stepdad my dad. You know, to the like he knows he's my children's grandfather. Just as much as my dad would be if he was still here with us. But like, he's here also, so that's another reason to be back here. That makes me happy. Um, so yeah, they started seeing each other, and they got real serious, and she knew I wanted to live in America. He knew I wanted to live here, and their decision was, let's give him that opportunity too, because like this is where we are, and we're interested in pursuing a life together too. So um that it's one of those things where, like, the waves of the universe just kind of like let us ride it right in. And I initially came here to play basketball. I played JV in high school, and I love martial arts my whole life. One of the first movies I saw was Enter the Dragon. I was like, well, I saw Enter the Dragon, I saw Superman. I was like, I want to be like those guys. Then I come to find out Superman's an alien. He's not real, So that transferred my love to Batman, but also I stayed in love with Bruce Lee, you know. Um, and I always wanted to be that guy. I found my dad is going through my stepdad. When I say my dad now, is going through some. He had a fire at his house, and this is a couple years ago, and
Oh, okay.
nobody was hurt, anything like that. But he's a collector. He has a lot of videos, and there's a lot. He used to always music and video, and I used to record a lot of videos, and he's finding tapes of me doing martial arts from like 16, 15 years old, 17 years old. And I'm like, I can't believe I was ever that horrible. He was showing something to me the other day. But
you got to have that in your next DVD set. You say, like, listen, you could be this bad, but you could become this good. You got to show it, man. It's inspiring,
Bro, you just gave me a marketing tip. Now I'm
Do
going to
it for
use that.
real.
Thank
You
you,
should.
Elias. I
Yes,
absolutely
sir.
will. But yeah, like I have all these old videos of me doing traditional martial arts, spinning kicks out in the backyard, my purple shorts and my abs showing, falling over doing it. I trained traditional kung fu, and as I played basketball, everybody on the team, they used to call me karate. Um, it's funny. Um, everybody thought it was so cool that I could kick the net, you know. Um, but what was this? 1992, 93. The first UFC happened.
Yeah.
And I
Did you
like
watch it when in '93? Did you watch it or no?
100%.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
so,
My dad got me over. We went to my uncle's house. We saw it on pay-per-view. Yeah.
man, I grew up on Bloodsport and Enter the Dragon and those movies, and it was like I see the ad for it. I think it was an Orbit. No, it wasn't an Orbit magazine. I think that was from the Bahamas, but I saw in the TV guide or somewhere listed, right? Kickboxing versus karate versus judo versus kung fu versus, and I was like, Pop. I went to my stepdad and like, Pop, can we get this? I'll give you the money for it. It was like $20,
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'll take my allowance, just please. I want to watch this. I want to see it. And I'm training praying mantis kung fu at the time, you know, and I'm like, this is awesome. So sitting down and getting ready to watch it, I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. And Art Jimison comes out with his one boxing glove, and Hoist Gracie comes out, and I'm like, yeah, this is all I can't wait. And then Hoist takes him down. I'm like, what's going on? I don't get it. I'm like watching. I'm like, man, I thought this was gonna be so awesome. This is so whack. And then Jason DeLucia is fighting, and I'm like,
Kung Fu
Jason
guy.
DeLucia representing praying mantis kung fu,
Yeah.
which is the style of kung fu that I've been doing for the past year. As soon as I came to America, and I'm all excited about it, and I'm like, yeah, now we're gonna see some cool stuff. And then he goes out there and he throws one wheel kick in the match. I remember this. He does one spinning kick, and it's like nothing lands, blah blah. And then they get into like a wrestling scenario, and he gets down, he gets the guy's back, and he chokes him. And I'm like, maybe there's something to this. Then I don't get it, but maybe there's something to it. So I watched the next UFC, and then I'm starting to like it more. I'm starting to understand some of the ground a little bit just from observation. Um, then I start like getting like watching like then the K1. The very first K1 pay-per-view was on. It was advertised at 80% knockout rate. And I was like, man, this is crazy. But then I watched it, it's like 5 fights and 4 of them are knockouts. I'm like, yeah, mathematically, that's correct. Right? So, but I'm like, that was on. And then they started advertising all these different little martial arts things. And I just started getting everything. I remember begging my dad to order these things, watching a bunch of Pankers videos, watching Henzo step on that French dude's neck, you know. Just all Gerard Gordeau and all of these, like everything I can get my hands on, man. And I was sucking it up, and I was like, I'm into this. This is cool. This is what I want to do. But remember, the UFC only had heavyweights back then. And then I was like, oh man, I got to get bigger. I got to get bigger. I got to get bigger. So I'm like lifting weights and drinking weight gainer. I'm taking like a pint of Bluebell ice cream and dropping that in with like a bunch of weight gainer and a little bit of milk and blending shakes every night. And and then the UFC introduced what they call the lightweight at the time was 199.
Right.
And I was like, I'm 5'9", and of course I'm a big football fan too at the time. And Rod Woodson, do you remember Rod Woodson?
Oh yeah,
Steelers, right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing a picture of him
players.
maybe in a Sports Illustrated or something, and it said he was 5'9", 203 pounds. And I see like he's in his athletic shorts but no shirt, and he's just in his photo shoot, and he's ripped and jacked and shredded. I'm like, I'm 5'9", I can be that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm just like pumping weights and drinking weight gain and proteins and going to Bally's sign up for Bally's Total Fitness and all this. And then they introduced the 170-pound division over time. But that's I don't even remember when that was, but
you might have started. I'd have to look, but you might have started fighting before they even introduced it. I have to look, but yeah, it might have been right around the same time, right? Did you your first fight in what, 97?
My first fight, yeah, 97. So yeah,
That's
And I'm
crazy.
watching these things, but like this is in 90, what, 93, 94.
Okay.
I go back to the Bahamas at 17. I turned 18 at home in the Bahamas. So I go back to the Bahamas just a couple of months. The summer I graduated in 94. And I turned 18 at home. And what one of my buddies, this dude, Tony Lowe, I'm over there. We used to go to school together at St. Augustine's, and when I went back, still one of my best friends. So hanging out with him, his little brother Chris comes out and he's wearing this uniform. Like, where you going, man? And he's like, I'm going to my ninjutsu class. And I'm like, bro, ain't no ninjas in the Bahamas. What you talking about, right? And he's like, no, it's like they do that stuff like in the UFC. And I was like, what? So like I wanted to go up there with him and check it out. I'm 17, 18 years old. I go there and they're like, you want to try it out? I'm like, sure. My uncle goes with me. He signs a waiver for me. You want to try it out? I'm like, yeah, cool. And this like 14-year-old chokes me, right? And I'm like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. So I start training there. And it was the system, Robert Bussey. I don't know if you remember that word, Bussey.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
Steve Jenham was a black belt with them, and then left
Right.
for one to
Yep.
UFC.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I was training with those guys. This guy Scott Groff, who's in Dallas now, was my first mixed martial arts coach, and started learning some things. Wasn't the most technical, but it was way more than I was getting anywhere else at the time. And then I moved back to America soon after that, back to Houston. Still didn't have my green card.
Mm.
Working on that, working on that. Looking, and I start teaching my one of my best friends is a Puerto Rican kid from here who lives here, and Felix Andino, and we're just going to the park in sweatpants and sweatshirts, and we're just like fighting each other in the grass, you know. And people are around watching us, and they're, sometimes people approach and ask us questions and whatnot. And we're the cool guys in the park who were like, well, at least we think we are. They probably think we're crazy, right? Who was doing this UFC stuff when nobody even knew what the UFC was back then.
Wow.
And then I get my first job. Finally get my green card, and I get my first job work at Applebee's, and my very first paycheck, man, goes to signing up at Tim Mosel's academy here in Houston, um, with for Jeet Kune Do and Jiu Jitsu and Muay Thai, and that was the beginning of it for me. That's when I really started to learn like real Jiu Jitsu and
Mm.
some real Muay Thai, and get better at this.
It was an amazing time of the sport that is now called mixed martial arts. Because you had people, you see stories, we hear these amazing stories, folks like yourself that you just recounted, basically of like, I become aware of the UFC, and then a few years later you're fighting, right? Like, and then like a few years later you're fighting, like you talked about Henzo stepping in a dude's neck. Well, you got a big ass Nate Marquardt, and you're fighting him later, and he's like who's under like these guys, like you're fighting the people you're seeing on TV, or you're fighting the people like who train with the people you've seen on TV really, really, really fast. And you were lucky, you got like you worked for it, you're able to get training. When it came to like putting it together, and maybe they offered you, because if they had jiu-jitsu and if it was like a good Jeet Kune Do place with Muay Thai, like maybe they had a good mind for it. But were you basically, when you were training at first, when it came time to like go fight, once you started fighting in 97, were you basically like, not that you were teaching yourself techniques, but like, were you putting it together on your own, or did you have coaches who had an understanding of how to mix it already? Because I know a lot of people don't. It's not that they didn't have good coaches, but like no one was putting it together until the young fighter themselves with their buddies were just like, okay, we're gonna figure it out by fighting.
I gotta be honest, because there's a lot of times when you separate from a coach, and it's just like you're not, but like being honest, Tim Mosel was my first mixed martial arts coach who I learned striking from, and I learned some jujitsu from, and in his classes, like we would work on jujitsu and striking.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
like he didn't necessarily refine my understanding of bringing it together, but I think he did start me on a good path to that, you know. And then I had two friends who I met there in his gym. Lynn Oding, who's Lynn's doing some amazing things right now, man. He wanted to be a stunt man. He became a stunt man. He became a stunt coordinator. Now he's directed movies and
Wow.
TV shows. He's done a couple episodes, like I think almost a whole season of Cobra Kai, and and he's doing some Jack Reacher stuff right now. But him, myself, and this other guy, Jace Jeans, who also got into stunts. Jace was a really good kickboxer. The three of us, we got together, started training a lot on our own and doing a lot of sparring.
Mm.
And like, this is such a long time ago when people weren't mixing their trainings, especially here in Houston. Houston was like a jiu-jitsu town, and then you had some kickboxers, and they were separate. Sometimes they come together to compete, but like for us, we like putting it all together. And this is like I'm saying, this is so long ago. We would call our sparring psycho rounds because we were kicking, punching, simulating knees and elbows, and doing takedowns and continuing through the grappling. You know, yeah, we would just train together and mix it all up and do it all together. And I think we had a bit of a reputation around here as something that's kind of where Thugjitsu came from.
Mm.
So I remember somebody saying, there's a place here called Elite. I think it's Elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. Eric Williams, he was also a coach where I was at with Tim Mosel. He was one of the coaches there. And when we all split up, some people were the word around town was, if you wanted to go learn some good jujitsu, you go train with a guy like Eric Williams or something like that. But if you want to learn some of that thug jitsu, then you go train with Eve and those guys, and it was like supposed to be a diss.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, it sounds like a racist thing to say. Did you like take that and I mean, was it, unless they were all black? It sounds like if someone calls a black person a thug, I think it's a coded thing, it's to say the least. But you took it, you embraced it, and you made it your own thing, huh?
Yeah, it was and I was training with Saul at the time, and the I believe the term was, yeah, if you want to learn some of that thug jitsu, you go train with Eve and Saul and those guys and whatnot. And so like I heard it. I Now that you asked that question the way you asked it, I remember hearing that and being upset by it for a second. And Saul was like, nah, man, that's cool. Take that shit.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
take that name. And I like when he said it like that, I was like, yeah, thug jitsu. I like that. Like,
That's
so yeah, I
awesome,
kind of
man.
embraced it.
That's an important that's an important thing though, right? Because like if you look at like jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or whatever people want to call it, it's a very it's not the stuff that we did like was kind of occluded and wasn't discussed, at least when I was coming up. We were all just on like whatever the Horion and Elio were saying, like in terms of the history, we just kind of like, at least me, we just kind of ate it and it was like, yeah, whatever. But now other people are doing like more histories or translations of histories and stuff, or even talk to some of the people. Like I remember like with American Top Team, kind of like I remember even one time talking with Conan Silveira, just in the Carlson lineage, right? And he was talking about all the classism, the elitism, and even some of the racism with some of that. So it's an important thing. You see Elio Gracie like signing bout agreements in the 30s with the fascist party uniform of Brazil on. You hear them talking about this guy fell out and this guy wasn't good. And you're like, oh man, that dude was poor. That dude was black. Like, this is interesting. So there's a very important thing. They're always proud of like training the elites and the powerful and the rich and stuff. So it was always like the stuff I started learning, like you hear like, okay, jiu-jitsu is for over here, these folks. But if you don't have if you don't have money for a gi, maybe you do like luta libre, and those are like poorer people and stuff. So this stuff is like embedded in jiu-jitsu, the language we use to discuss and like who's real jiu-jitsu and who's not. And I'm sure there was some amazing technicians, but who's done more with the jiu-jitsu out of that group than you, right? Like who's faced more black belts and submitted more black, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's a very fascinating thing.
No, that's real. And I honestly, like, as you say that, I never really thought about that before. But then, you think about the population of Black people, Africans in Brazil, and then you go back to the whole luta livre versus jujitsu, and like all the jujitsu guys were like lighter skinned dudes, and all the luta livre guys were like black guys, like Pele and Zulu,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, like I like that never even crossed my mind, but like yeah, that's a real thing, man, and then it's kind of universal, you know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when you started fighting, were you just taking whatever fights came, or were you like record building, career planning? Because I know a lot of people that around the time I started fighting in those days, there was no, first of all, there was no like amateur ranks, right? Like it's just like let's just go and fight. Like how was it with you? You just taking anything that came your way?
I I would pay to enter a tournament this weekend. Next weekend, I would be getting paid to fight someone, maybe in a
Wow.
tournament. You
Wow.
know, there's this so there's this video on YouTube. I gotta rip it from YouTube and post it on my reels, but there's this video of you on YouTube of me versus this guy named Tim Horton, right? And the backstory to that is like it shows the video and it's like this guy, Eve takes an opponent who's 20 pounds heavier. Like this dude was easily 60 pounds bigger than me. You could see it in the video, right? But the backstory to that was Boss Rutan sent an email to Tim Mosel. I remember I told you I used to watch all those Pancras tapes.
Yeah, yeah,
King of Pancras for, and I was like, I was a crazy Boss Rutan fan. At that point in my life, like quick side note. At that point in my
yeah. Oh,
life,
please.
there were two guys that I really looked up to, and they were Boss Rutan and Pele Lande, right? And there was one fight in Pancras that like just like I remember laying there on my couch watching this fight, and Vernon White, he's gets out of submission by grabbing the ropes. Remember in Pancras you can grab the ropes, you got
Yep,
three
yep.
grab, grab the ropes. Then I think he got two of those, right? And then this is the final round, and he just finds an opening, turns it on, lights the guy up, gets the KO, and wins. Right? I'm literally watching this. I roll off of my couch, get on my knees, and I go, God, please let me have fights like that when I start fighting. Please, please, please. I like begging, right?
Wow.
And then like watching all these Boss Rutan highlights, and of course the Pele Macaco fights and whatnot. And then Boss Rutan emails my coach, Tim Mole, say he's looking to do a seminar when he's coming down here for some fights. And then my coach knows, Tim knows that I'm like crazy Boss Rutan fan. So when I go to the gym that night, he tells me, hey, guess what? I got an email today. I was like, that's cool. I'm thinking maybe I got a fight offer, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, from Boss Rutan. I was like, what Boss Rutan emailed? And he starts telling me, and I'm like, man, would you please ask him if I can have his email and then let me have it if he says it's cool and let me, and then he does it. And then the next day he gives me Boss's email. I email Boss, and this is back in dial-up internet anyway. But like,
Yeah.
I email Boss, and Boss writes back, and it's like, yeah, I'm coming to Houston for this show on this date. And I'm like, oh man, I'm supposed to fight in Dallas that day. And he's like, oh, it's really disappointing. I would love to meet you. And I was like, I'm gonna meet you. I called the promoter in Dallas. I'm like, hey man, I'm not coming. I'm just not coming. Right. And then the arena here where Boss is going to be guest as a guest of the fights, I go to the rules meeting and I walk in with my gear. And this is in the 90s. This is 99. I walk in with my gear and I'm like, hey, if somebody does not have an opponent, I will fight them.
Wow.
That's just it. And then I leave because I'm like, if y'all have an opponent, just let me know. I'm gonna be here. Right. And then I leave. Then my roommate rolls up on me, Lynn Oding. He's like, bro, do you see you're fighting? I'm like, no. He's like, bro, this dude's like 6'2, 6'3, he's probably like 220. He's jacked. And I'm just like, okay. And Boss is sitting right next to me when he tells me that. And Boss is like, Eve, you win? I'm gonna be like, yeah. You lose? I'm gonna be like, yeah. Anymore, you know? And you get to see that part, Boss's reaction in that part in the video. And then I go out and I just like light this guy up, you know. It I just watched it the other night. For some reason, it just came up on my feed and I was watching. And some of the funny things about it is like as this guy's coming to the ring, I'm in the ring. I'm with boss and my coach. And they're talking to me. Then his music starts, and it's this like heavy metal music. And he's coming out. It's like Tim the Iron Man Horton. This is his thing. He will have fight, will travel. He's just a beast. Yves Edwards trains with Tim Mosel Self Defense Academy. Tim Horton's just an animal. He trains everywhere. So it's really kind of cool when I go back and watch these things and see them. But yeah, and then boss is there at my fight, and like that's the time. That's the time for the sport,
Yeah.
I didn't there's no commission involvement. I just showed up and I got an opponent. There's no weigh-ins, no weight class, and then like over time as a sport, this is when it was no holds barred, and then the sport changed, became mixed martial arts. But even then, like Saul had a tournament called Renegades, and I fought in Renegades, and I fought the first Renegades tournament. I won my weight class. I had to fight Pete Spratt. This is before we were friends. We didn't know each other at all on that night. And I forget the other guy's name, but he trained here in Houston. And then the next tournament, we had a 4-man tournament. Somebody dropped out. We had to draw straws. And I had to fight twice. That night I fought 2 guys while they all both fought 1 guy, And I think we were regulated by the commission. The commission let it happen. So it was like, that's the time it was in the sport, man.
Amazing. You have a lot of fights that are like recorded, or but did you have are there other fights that aren't on the record? There's guys like around here, like Miguel Torres used to fight, like he has a ton of fights, right? But he used to fight like a grown men as a kid, like in bars, like every weekend. So he probably has like 24 other fights. Or a guy like, sadly, he just died, but Brian Gassaway, he's he had a ton of fights like yourself too. Yeah, it's real sad.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, just in the fall. He was a good cat. He was really good to me, even though I didn't come from him and didn't like train with him. He was he came to like the academy. He sent people to mine. We just got started. He was a real good cat. He had a bunch of fights that weren't recorded either. Did all your fights get into what we find like on Sherdog, or some of them missed? Nope. That's what I was guessing.
No, there's I remember there's a highlight video that I put together, my very first highlight video, and I think I put on YouTube on my YouTube channel with the title "My Very First Highlight Video." None of those fights are on my record.
Wow.
And you could even disregard the fights that are on mats. Everyone on that video that's in a ring, it's not on my record.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it's kind of crazy. I was telling my wife the other day, I don't remember. It's kind of weird. It's like if you've dated a lot of girls, I feel like you kind of would remember all of their names of everybody. I guess everybody you slept with, right?
Yeah, right.
Like I have fights, I don't remember the guys' names.
Yeah.
You're
fighting guys on 2 minutes notice sometimes too.
Yeah. But I was looking at my record the other day, and I saw Darren Cruikshank on my record, and I'm like, I fought Darren Cruikshank. I don't even remember that.
That's amazing.
Maybe because it was forgettable, but I don't remember that.
That's incredible. When did you? So I know you worked with the American Top Team and stuff. Did you move there, or would you just travel there? And when did you start?
I traveled there for a while,
Okay.
And this started. Maybe like. Oh, this started actually after I fought Mike Brown, so it would have been right after. Yeah, right after Jorge and I fought, and then Mike and I fought. Then I started going there. I had been traveling to Florida for like the AFCs.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, a little bit prior to that. Like I had guys fighting down there, like Rocky Long and Carlo Prater. And so meeting those guys, getting to talk to Dan Lambert, and they kind of invited me down to train with and then join the team. And I first started traveling down there around right after a few months after Mike and I fought. And then I moved down there 2005 or six, maybe.
Mm.
Yeah. My
Did
first fight, actually, the only fight I had while I lived there was against Dwayne Ludwig in Strikeforce.
okay. That's it. Did fighting? I would have to look. I don't. Well, you would probably know. I was gonna say I don't know if when you fought Jorge Masvidal, if he was with them yet or not or whatever. But I was wondering. I was gonna ask like because you mentioned Mikey and him. Did fighting like a guy like Mike Brown? Did that help you? How should I put this? Did that help you think like, hey, this is the place to be? Like I should get some work in there because these guys are solid.
Um, I always knew those guys were solid. I mean, prior to fighting Mike Brown, I don't think he was training there yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
No, I mean, when we fought, he was training there.
Oh, okay.
Prior to that, like, I got all these side notes. It's a funny thing.
I love
Mike
it.
Brown, he fought, I forget, I think it was when I fought Hermes in the UFC. And Hermes is from American Top Team at the time that we fought.
Yeah, right.
So I knew those guys were tough. Not
Mm.
only from being in the cage with him, from watching guys like Dean and knowing of Marcus Aurelio and in Japan, and Jay-Z Cavalcante. But we were at staying in Mandalay Bay, and my coach, we used to go down into the work to the fitness center, and the way they had it was like the fighter could go down there, but coaches had to pay, right? So my coach was like, my coach Lewis Wood, this old Texas guy, little white guy, boxed at 126 pounds, and but he's just a hard dude, right? So like we're down there, and like his line is like, if something like just he finds ridiculous, is just like, well, that ain't about shit. Like that's just how that's his attitude. So we go down there, and they're like, yeah, well, coaches have to pay. And then he's like, I'm not paying to go in there to hold pads for you. What did we talk, And then he's like, I was like, I know what to do. And so we go back in, and I'm like, yeah, we're getting ready for the fights tomorrow. He's like, you both fighters? I was like, yeah, me, Yves Edwards, and this is Mike Brown. So he signed in as Mike Brown every day to go in the fitness center.
Have you ever told Mike that
I
story?
told Mike
That's
about it. Yeah,
awesome. That's
he loved it.
amazing. That's awesome. Mike's a good dude. We're at a different location now. We own our own space now, which is awesome. But like when we were going to this a few years ago, we were opening up this one spot. Um, Mike came and did a seminar to like open up our academy, and he did it. He was coaching. He was coaching. At the time, he was coaching Colby Covington when he fought. Um, was a Perillo's guy, the Brazilian, the former lightweight champion. I'm blanking right now.
RDA.
Yeah, I don't know why. Thank you. I don't know why. Embarrassing. I'm blanking that. But yeah, they had their fight in Chicago, and so Mike's like, yeah, well, I'll just do it when we're in Chicago. And so he like had them change his flight so he can stay later and do that. It was super nice of him. He's a good cat. Dean Thomas has done a seminar at our place too. He was awesome, and they both did it when we were so small. I could just fit 12 people. So you got these guys of that caliber coming and doing a seminar and for like 12 people. I remember when Dean came, first of all, he didn't let me. He's like, no, don't fly me in. Wait till I'm in camp in Milwaukee with Tyron, and then I'll take a train. And I was like, okay, thank you. That's cool. And he comes in, he's like, oh, I thought you like were like in a garage or something. So he came just to do a seminar in what he thought was gonna be a garage. A class X, man. They're good guys.
Yeah, bro. Both those guys. Mike is one of the best friends, and Dean and I, like, we go way back. Dean and I did some good things together, man. You're gonna see some of that this year too. But I love that guy. But like the crazy thing about Dean, me and Dean always, well, for a long time we got confused for each other. I know, I know, right? It's kind of crazy. But like I remember one time we were at this martial arts convention in Orlando. I don't remember. It was martial arts focused, not mixed martial arts.
Okay.
And this guy rolls up on me, and his wife, yeah, he rolls up on me, and he's introducing me, and he's like, yeah, man, this guy is awesome, blah blah blah, and he's done all this, and he's this and that, and he's this and that, and he introduces me as Dean Thomas, and I'm like, Yeah, I am. I'm like, yes, nice to meet you. And I shake his hand. And then when he introduces me to his wife, I shake her hand like real flirty like, you know. And I'm just like, and I just go right into the role. And I'm just playing like this douchebag flirting with this dude's wife in front of him because he just sold me up as this dangerous guy, and he's not going to step to me. And then you know, as soon as I see him like getting red, I'm like, I'm just kidding, man. I'm Yves Edwards, I'm not Dean Torres.
If you would have left it that way, Dean would have had a real bad reputation for like a one particular guy in the world forever.
Yo, I couldn't do that to DT though.
Oh, that's hilarious, man. That is funny. So we talk, you had the fights that we all see on the records, and then many, many more they're not. The point is you fought a whole lot. Like not every, you know, OG has put those numbers on. Not every pioneer, not every all-time great has been a type of person that has just fought that much, right? So there's a lot of all-time greats that like yourself, but who didn't fight as much, and they're great for other reasons and stuff. And that, no disrespect to them, but it's a particular guy. Not that I have this figured out, but it's a particular person that fights for as long as you did professionally and fights that many, because it's just not everyone. It's not everyone, even among elite athletes. Like there's just so many levels. My dad got me into jiu-jitsu when I was 15. I've never stopped training jiu-jitsu. I love it. I have my own academy. I do it. I'm in the gym 2-3 times a day teaching. You know, I still do jiu-jitsu competitions. I fought as an amateur. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And my dedication is like in the basement compared to people that took it pro. And that, right? Like I know I have friends. Joe Lozon is a good friend of ours. We're like same age. We started at the same time. I don't think he's like an Olympic athlete, but he loved this shit way more. He dedicated it way more. And that's what separates. Like he was nice. He's like, oh, you could have gone pro if you wanted to. I'm like, that's the point. Part of greatness is wanting to. Is the part of greatness is making this your, you know, like committing so much. I love this stuff. I didn't love it as much as you all, because you know what I mean. Like there's a whole, and I only know that when I look at it in comparison, because in my heart every day I'm always thinking about this all day. But then I look at, I'm like, oh, I clearly I'm not committed like these guys, because they just, you know, that's a tough life. I wanted to write, I wanted to do school, and do all this shit, and I did that. And it's a nice life. It's cool, but I'm not that level committed. Yeah, someone's fought as much as you. What made it so appealing to you? Not just that you did it and you fought at the highest levels, but you did it for so long. You did it through ups and downs. You did it through no money, through money. Like what, if you think about it, like what really spoke to you? Is it once you faced it? Because a lot of kids watch martial arts movies and a lot of kids watch the UFC and then they got punched and it really wasn't for them. What do you think about it was so appealing to you once you were doing it?
Oh man, there's a lot to that. As you asking that question, a question formulated itself in my mind, and I want to ask you this: when you watch Enter the Dragon or Bloodsport or even the Karate Kid, and it's the final fight, you know, it's the final opponent, and the hero is suffering a little bit, but like he fights through it, you know, and he wins. Like, do you think that's, oh man, that's fucking cool? Or do you think, oh man, I want to do that? Well,
Yeah, that's a good, I guess. Yeah, I think for me, I always had those like fantasies of like, I want to do that because I thought like there's something heroic about it. And so that's why I dipped my toe in. That's why I fought for 3 years. But I never was in those situations, like if like an actual hard situation. I'm just fighting other normal dudes every once in a while, right? But like I never was like tested, and like in none of the fights where I was beat up did I come back and win, right? Like it's like I never, you know what I mean? Like I either beat that dude right away or I lost, but I never had like the fighting character to like battle through. So at first I was like, yeah, I love that. I want to do that. But then when it came time, like if I'm honest, it's like, oh, I guess I don't want to be that, because like once I had a few disc injuries, I stopped fighting. Now there's no way the people that like yourself have fought for so long fought for so long because you didn't have as many injuries. No, you've had way more injuries, and you just keep going and stuff. So yeah, that's a good question. I think like at first I probably thought like, oh, I want to be that. And then, maybe I take it further than some people who never train or never fight or whatever. But then it's like, oh no, that's just cool. I just respect it. I think that's really cool, but I can't do it.
Man, I see those things, and it's kind of like I said about the Vernon White thing. Is like I want that, you know.
Mm.
And I don't think about these things too. I was watching. I had this fight with this guy Coulter Gill. I don't know if you remember him, but he's fighting out of Canada.
No, I'd have to look them up.
Tall, thin. I think his background is Middle Eastern.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh yeah,
But
okay, I'm looking. You fought him in 2001, right?
yeah,
Nice.
I just watched that fight a couple days ago, and I wasn't getting beat up, but I was losing that fight.
Mm.
But like I remember winning, of course. Then the Josh Thompson fight, I was losing that fight. Josh was bigger than me. He's a better wrestler, and he had me on the back foot for a while because although I felt like the better kickboxer, I thought I was the better kickboxer. His wrestling concerned me. Fights with Hermes Franca, there were some times where like I don't remember feeling like I was losing any of these fights, but I remember some of the fights with Hermes where there was this attrition, and I was just like, I'm not in both of them. I remember, particularly in the UFC, I remember two things stand out to me when he was going for a leg lock, and I was like, oh shit, this guy's a black belt and he's going for my legs and I don't fucking like leg locks. Oh shit. And then there's something else in my brain goes, don't let him get you. Like that was just it. Just then don't let him get your leg. Like what, and then like I remember there was one scramble we were in and he was down and he was coming up. And like, I don't know if you know this, but there are times in fights where like you think so fast, you will have a whole conversation and you're like a whole movie can play out in your head in the span of the time it takes to throw a punch, right? So I remember we were in this scramble and we're separated and he's down and he's getting up. And I throw this kick and it just goes right over his head because he's down. But like I'm thinking to myself, oh, we're in the scramble. He's coming up. I'm gonna throw this kick. And if he takes his hands off the ground, this is gonna hit him right in the mouth. But he didn't, and it goes right over his head. And it looks like I almost broke the rules.
Yeah, right.
But I remember thinking, I am going to put this right where his head's going to be. With Josh, I remember I was like, I tried the takedown, and then we were in that scramble, and he threw that back fist. But I remember I was like, I'm going to push him away, and I'm going to throw this kick so fucking hard. If he blocks, I'm going to break his arm. I don't care. And that's why I fell, because I put everything into the kick. So as soon as I touched him, my other leg was just toes on the ground, just kind of, that momentum got stopped by his neck and my leg just came up. One time, and then also in the gym, I remember one time, like Gleason T-Bow, he's a big, strong dude. And we're training, and he takes me down, and he's in my half guard, or I'm turning to get up. And he's on top riding, and he's throwing punches. We're wearing MMA gloves, not 16s.
Wow.
And he's throwing punches. And he hits me like probably a total of 3 or 4 times. But like after like 2 of them, I'm thinking, man, T-Bow, you're hitting me entirely too hard for these little gloves and for practice. Like he wasn't like being vicious, but it was enough to be like, bro, are we gonna fight or not?
Right.
And but like my brain goes, well, then you just gotta fucking get up. That's but like I think there's some of that guys who fight have. There's something about like just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. And you want that. It's nice. It's always nice to go out there and just walk through somebody. To have like a Masvidal, Ben Askren at a moment, that's always nice. But it's even nicer when those things come off of some attrition, you know. Think about Derek Lewis and the big Russian Volk,
All right. Yep. Yep.
you know, like that like I like two of my favorite fights of all time. My second fight with Hermes Franca and my fight with Joaquin Hansen in Pride. You know, the fight with Hermes Franca, like I gassed in the first round. I was tired, like I was dead tired. And then he hit that guillotine and he had it. It was in.
Wow.
Like I was 5 seconds from tapping and 7 seconds from passing out.
Wow.
But I fought, I got out, and bald head and sweat and everything else helped, you know. But those moments, man, those moments, like you want those. When you stop wanting those, that's probably when it's time to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I wanna continue on that direction in a minute, but were you talking about that internal monologue in those moments? I think that's super interesting. I think that speaks to like a processing speed and an intelligence, whatever we want to call it, that is special, right? Like people always talk about the athletic gifts that high level pro athletes like yourself have, and I'm sure they're considerable and stuff. But like the brain is a part of the body too, and the way certain people can process things, it differs from person to person. When a stressful situation like that can slow down to the point where you can think and plan. It's not just reaction, because so much of what we try to do is to train yourself to react properly without thinking, of course. But like when you actually can do that, is that something you, in your experience in conversations with your peers or people you've taught, is that something that like all great fighters have, or do you think it's not every great fighter is talented in that way to be able to have moments where they can process so fast that they can have those thoughts and plans in the span of a microsecond?
That's a good question. I think there are levels, of course, to that. And of course that kind of goes towards your strengths also. You know, I like to think of Adesanya and Whitaker the first time, right? The punch that Adesanya dropped Whitaker with, like he got hit right before that. But like if you watch his eyes, like he gets hit, his head gets turned a little bit, but then he looks back and he finds him. But he starts throwing the punch before. He's throwing the punch, and he looks back and he finds him, and then he lands the shot. Right? And I don't know, maybe the trajectory was already on point. Or maybe he made the adjustment when he saw it. But also, I don't think like consciously that was a thing for him to make the adjustment. I think that was just reps and reps and reps and his body taking over. And for me, that's like being in the moment. I think that's what the best guys can do. The guys who are in the moment, everything slows down. It's almost like you could see a little bit of the future. You know, you can see a short second into the future, because there are times when you know exactly what somebody's going to do. I've been in there with guys and thought, oh, he's about to throw a kick. I'm going to let him throw this kick, and then I'm going to return with this. Or somebody throws a right hand. I remember being in there with Rich Clementi, and he throws a right hand at me, and I don't even move, but it doesn't land. But like and then I realized after the fact, I was like, I saw that coming and I didn't move and didn't even hit me. Like, but like there's some of these things become instinctual too, you know? And then, but like when you're really in the moment, like these things that happen, you process them as they happen. So like your instincts take over for most of it, but I think some of those moments when your instincts take over, your brain sees it also and processes it as like, oh wow, we're really doing this.
That's amazing.
You know?
No, thanks for talking
It's
about that.
kind of cool, man. It's really cool.
That is really cool. I think that's awesome. Like in my in my little amateur MMA career, I definitely never reached that point, which is really cool. I've had moments where like I don't remember anything. I like kind of like black out, but I end up in a good position. So like obviously my body did the right thing, and that's cool. But like what you were describing is like that, you're saying that's really an interesting level, and that's why I wanted to ask you about that. That's a whole that it strikes me as a whole nother level of preparedness and processing speed. It's very 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 cool. How hard was it for you to decide, all right, I'm gonna not I'm gonna stop competing professionally in MMA. Maybe not stop being in the sport or doing all the things you're doing that I want to talk about, but like I'm gonna stop doing this thing that I've been doing for 17, 18 years. Done, more than any other thing I've done as an adult, I guess, like professional. Like how hard was it for you to decide to do that? Or how easy was it? I don't know where you were at the moment,
It wasn't easy.
Mm.
It wasn't easy at all. It was one of those things where it's like I had lost my last fight, and I'm like, if I'm not, for me, it's like if I'm not, I still love it, but if I'm not doing this to be the best, then yeah, it's still, I can still do it. Like I can still train, but like, what's the point in competing if I'm not trying to be the best? Yeah, it's fun, but like I can do that. But also the toll that it takes on your body, if I'm not trying to be the best and I'm still taking punches to the head, going in the gym every day on that grind at 38 years old, 39 years old, it's, for me, it was different. If I was still trying to be the number one guy in the world, then yeah, I think I could be more motivated to do that. Discipline was not an issue. I had the discipline to do it. I'm still doing it, but I think I lost a few things. As far as, well, there's some things that I lost just for the nature of the game. Like I lost some advantages I had in the sense of, if you look at these lightweights now, man, they're huge. They're absolutely huge. And some of them are just as fast as I was and bigger, you know? So it's one of those, that's one of the things that over time that I think I lost. But as the game changed and the sport evolved, there's better textbooks now. So somebody who's been doing this, who still doesn't know doesn't have all the textbook knowledge that I have, still has enough textbook knowledge and enough athleticism and size and speed to be a challenge, or even to get their hand raised over mine. So some of those things are things that have to factor in. You don't think about it at the time. These are things that I kind of came to after thinking about it, because there are times now when I watch fights and I'm like, bro, you are so lucky I'm not 28 years old. But there are times now when I watch fights and I'm like, I am 45 and I'm comfortable in this chair. So there's two sides to that coin. But like hanging them up, it's kind of weird because it's not something that you like, when you, especially fighting at that level, like you don't necessarily want to, it's not something you don't ever want to do again. Like my my wife has never seen me fight, but she's always worried that she's going to see me fight, because like I still love it, and it comes up every so often, especially being in the gym now. I got to remind myself that sometimes the guys I'm training with, they're real young, they don't have that experience. They don't know anything. So yeah, you probably, if you did spar with them, you'd probably beat them up, but like give them 5 years and then see what is going on. But then do I want to wait 5 years and then be like, nah, I'm going to come back? Nah. But
it's tough, right? Because you never like the fight, your mind And your heart is always going to be your mind and your heart. And you have a fighter's mind and a fighter's heart. And God willing, you're going to be 120 and you're going to still be a fighter here and a fighter here. So
Yeah.
that's why it's got to be difficult because you know when you retire, you might be an old fighter, but you're a very young man or woman, and so
Yeah.
it's a challenge, and it's tough for anybody who's fought who loves it. Like I always thought I was going to fight more, but it wasn't my profession. It wasn't as much of a part of my identity. So I can only imagine the challenge just to stop, to hang it up that guys like you, you know, have presents to guys like you. Did you know what you would do afterwards? Or did you jump into like retirement like, I hope I find something to do and make a living and something that excites me and that I'm passionate about?
It was more of the latter, but not completely.
Mm.
You know, I had my SAG card. I knew that like stunts and acting was a potential thing, and I do a little bit of that, but not as much as I would like. And the crazy part is literally when I'm like, okay, I'm in a position to really commit to doing more of this. Pandemic happened, and all these things change, and one good thing came out of it, like the film Bruise that I did with Halle Berry. That happened like right at the beginning of the pandemic,
Uh,
but this is before vaccines were available. But
uh,
now these vaccines are available. There's not every show, but there are some shows that want people to be vaccinated and those things. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, I am not one of those guys who's going to tell you to or to not, but I am not afraid to tell you how I feel about it.
mm.
And
If I take it, you don't want to get vaccinated, so that closes off some of that for you, is what you're
some
saying.
doors, yeah, that
Yeah, I
opens
got
some
you.
doors. And not all of them,
Mm-hmm.
but some. And then we talk about broadcasting, and I love that part of the game. There's there's a space that you have to make for yourself when you're in a position like that I'm in, where um you have this resume but you're not active anymore. The people who know Yves Edwards are people who've been around the sport. They're not, and also the people from that era, they're not they're not spending a whole lot of money on the sport other than the pay-per-views. You know what I mean?
Uh,
They're not, they're yeah, if they're going to a UFC, like it's because it's in their town, and yeah, they're going to spend that money or something like that. But they're not buying all the memorabilia and because they've been doing it since the 90s. You know what I mean?
right, right.
Early 2000s. So they have a lot of it, and yeah, they'll do it occasionally. But you know, the new breed, the new era of the fan is kind of what the marketing is about. But like then you get guys like Dean who figure it out. They just they know how to bring them, the old school them, to this era. And that's one of the things that that I would recommend that every fighter learn how to do, especially if you want to get into broadcasting. But at the same time, if you're competing now, man, get into it. And there's all kinds of avenues. I try to tell everybody to get into it. Um, I feel like Thiago Alves, man, doing that, especially if he did that in Portuguese. Like there's a lot, like there's a lot of guys on the English side, like I could probably name 10 guys right now on the English side of things. But like Ponzinibbio, I don't know if Ponzinibbio does Portuguese or Spanish.
The Spanish, right? Yeah.
He does the Spanish,
No,
right?
I was wondering the same thing. Does he speak
Okay,
Portuguese too?
I believe so. I
That's
believe
cool.
so.
That's cool.
But like they have this, they have tons of film and footage and broadcasts in Brazil and whatnot. And I'm like, Thiago Alves, man, you're one of those guys. You should do it. But like he has other things going on also. But like there's just these opportunities for certain guys, and I think a lot of the guys who are interested in those things should take them. Like, shoot, I'm like, man, as UFC moves in Africa, like Sadiq Yusuf, like do some of that. Um, I don't know if their broadcast will be in any particular African languages because every country has so many different tribal
Right.
languages. But just the fact that you were born there, that's your home. Like they're just more people are more accepting to that, and the opportunity exists. So I don't know. That I guess that's a side note as a thing to some young fighters coming up. Like try and take advantage of these things because yeah, one day, like nobody's gonna want to pay to see you punch someone in the face.
It's good.
Um,
It's definitely good advice. It's definitely good advice, and it's not doesn't make it easy to do. I'm sure, even if you know it's the right thing to do. But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting too that to me, and I want to round it out by talking about teaching and coaching and training people. Not every great athlete has any interest in teaching others or coaching others, right? Like teaching and coaching, especially. Like you could be a teacher and like go home or whatever, and it's kind of like you're teaching like an adult learning center class or something. But like coaching, you want to coach fighters. You coach fighters, like that's an extremely generous, selfless life. And man, maybe you disagree, but so much of when you are a fighter needs to be a selfish, not like a bad person, but like you need to be thinking about yourself and your development and all that stuff. And so not every fighter even has an interest or even has like the inclination to teach or coach. And not every fighter wants to like, you go from like having all the lights on you to like you're mopping up a gym or like you're holding a bucket for someone. Like not everyone wants to do that. Did you always know that you wanted to teach and pass on and be a coach, or is that something that you've more recently discovered and interested in, like maybe the last 5-10 years?
I found that early in my career. It's one of those things where I'm training and I'm coaching at the gym that I'm training at. Then I decide to open my own place, and a lot of these guys are coming up under me. Rocky Long, Carlo Prater, Chase Corley, some guys they're fighting on. Well, actually, Chase didn't fight back then; he was still a kid. But you're cornering these guys, John Ivy, um, you're cornering these guys, and you see them succeed, and you see them fail, and you feel it. You feel it. I remember, man, there's this fight with Carlo Prater. He's fighting Keith Wisniewski down in Mississippi, and Carlo's the champ. He's fighting Keith, and the first round goes by, and I'm just like, bro, what's happening? Like, is that guy super strong or something? No, he doesn't feel strong. And what are you doing? Because you just lost this round. You way better than this guy, like way better than this guy. What are you doing? Um, this is what you need to do. And the second round happens, and he doesn't do any of it, and Keith wins the round. And this is back when title fights could still be 3 rounds, and Carlo's the champion. And then third round, we're between the second and third round. He comes back, and it's like Carlo's my friend. He's like a brother, and I if I'm in your corner, like that's who we are. I used to, people would be like, man, Yves Edwards, are you cornering me? I did that once, and this guy was like horrible. And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I don't necessarily want to be associated with that. On top of that, bro, like I'm not just like I don't want to be this mascot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so we gotta be friends. I gotta know you. I have to have some vested interest in you that's more than just how you perform in this fight. Um, because I'm gonna be honest with you, because like in that between the second and third round with Carlo, like I was like, bro, I don't know what to tell you. You should just go over there and give him your belt right now, because like there's nothing else I can tell you. This is fucking ridiculous. You're way better than you're fighting. So like I don't care. I don't care. You don't care. I don't care. And Carlo comes back after that round, drenched in blood. None of it is his, you know, but it's a 3 round fight. Yeah, he won the third round. This is back when 10-8s were like not really a common thing
Yeah.
either. So he loses 29-28, but like he shows me that he had the ability to do this the whole time, but he showed that to himself too. Um and then there was another fight. I just had a son, and he was fighting Drew Fickett, but I'd also just come back from a long camp and a long and from a fight, and he wanted me to corner him. And Carlo was undefeated at the time too, and he's beating up Drew Fickett, but then he loses late in the fight. And I think that, I can't be sure, but like my perception was that that kind of changed some things for him, you know, um, in the fight game with confidence, because I think confidence is a huge thing. Um, and like I felt that. So like being a coach, you kind of get to these points, I feel like, where you care about these guys. Just a couple of the guys who I've been training recently. Oliver Jimenez over at Heritage Muay Thai. He's an amateur right now, professional Muay Thai, and Rebecca Irwin. I've trained her a little bit, and like I really like those two kids. I think they have potential to do great things, and I like their work ethic. Um, I kind of I kind of feel a bond with them already, you know, that I feel like it's going to grow over time. We still keep working together. And um, if they were to lose a fight ever, it's going to hurt, you know. But that has to do with like knowing what it's like to be in there, knowing what it's like to put into this, and knowing that feeling of joy and failure. And the my the most the best feeling that I ever got from fighting, aside from seeing somebody get their hand raised, is watching them succeed with something that I've put in their head, or some technique that I gave to them, like whether it be a back escape or a head kick setup or whatever it is. It's like I like I feel like I had a part in your growth as a human being, you know, whether it be fighting through attrition or just a quick, smooth, slick KO or something, you know. Um, I don't know. I and all the guys who I've ever trained, like we're still super tight. We're still close and cool. And even if I haven't seen you in years, like I was saying with Saul, man, Saul, I could legit say Saul is like family to me, and that might be weird because like I just talked to my uncle yesterday for the first time in like 2 years, you know. But like I miss my uncle, he misses me, and it's one of those things. So it's like I don't have to talk to you every single day for us to be family. And so the times when I think about the things that we've done together and things that I learned from you, I miss it. And I remember you, and I want to have that with a lot of people. I want to help a lot of young guys and women get to the point where they know or believe they could do something they weren't sure of before that.